Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Longevity and Muscle Building. My name is Chris Quinones, and I'm the leader of Alchemy Club and the founder of Rasayana, a natural pain relief and longevity practice that specializes in Ayurveda and muscular therapy. And I really wanted to take the time today to share with you my love of muscle, what makes muscles so unique and special in vitality and longevity, and leave you with some recommendations on how to go about building healthy muscle tissue in a really accessible and sustainable way. Now, in the tale of longevity, many begin with building their house on a weak foundation, much like the first little pig who built his house from straw. Many are out of rhythm with nature and the day night cycles or seasonal cycles. Many are still leaning on convenience food and overscheduling themselves, not allowing enough time for rest and recovery. And while these ways of living a more sedentary life may be okay in our youth, as time goes on, we are subject to the winds of change and we lose muscle and bone mass as a result and start to experience pain, limited range of motion, inflammation, and a general loss of vitality. And seeing the limitations of this, many will then move on to quick fixes. And much like the second little pig who built his house from sticks, it's a little bit more stable than the straw house because maybe there's some sporadic physical exercise and workouts that have entered into your lifestyle. These workouts might be very intense, or people may look to outside sources for their remedies, whether that's supplements, herbs, um, and other intoxicants that they believe will, in the long term, help them when really it's the short term. Many will seek retreats or peak experiences without having the proper integration and systems in place for those approaches to be sustainable, to be lasting, to be effective. You might see a chiropractor or a massage therapist for an adjustment. You may be in the wrong relationships, whether it is your romantic relationship or your professional one, working in the wrong job or wrong career that doesn't illuminate your spirit and bring you joy in your life. And this is where, again, some relief may be found and will likely be found, but there's a lack of holistic strength for the components that make it lasting. And that's where holistic and traditional systems like Ayurveda are really helpful in building a strong foundation for longevity and vitality. What Ayurveda really wants to offer you, what I want to offer you, is a way to connect the dots intuitively between the experiences you're having within your body and the experiences you're having in the world around you, and be able to create routines, rhythms, and systems without hard rules and more intuition, more flow, more ease in life. And that's really what my intention is for you today. And some of you may have heard of Ayurveda by now, this traditional homeopathic medical system of India. And Ayurveda often begins with talking about the doshas and their roles. And you've certainly heard of the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha by now. If you're in my orbit, you've likely heard of these three mind body energies that are responsible for different physiologies in our body. And how they interact with one another is largely influenced by our choices in our habits and lifestyles. And skeletal tissue is the one organ system that is the most influenced by our lifestyles. As such, we put a lot of priority on caring for them. And in Ayurveda, we really want to stick to an environment that is warm and moist. Warm and moist is the environment where life thrives. We don't want it to be too warm. We don't want it to be too moist. And so Ayurveda, in practicing it, is much like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You want your medicine or your remedy, your rasayana, to be the just right, just the right size, not too much, not too little, and given at the right time. And so by syncing our habits and our rhythms and our lifestyles to these circadian rhythms between night and day and within our season, even throughout the year, we're able to better regulate our nervous and immune systems to stay within that warm and moist range. And so when we talk about these mind body principles of the doshas, there are three. Vata is the elements of air and space, and Vata is responsible for all movement in the body, all communication in the body, and the expulsion of substances from the body. This is really important because it helps balance metabolic waste and or eliminate metabolic waste and balance our energy and vitality. Without a healthy, balanced digestion and elimination of waste, we will not have body thrive. Now, Pitta is the second mind body energy made out of the fire element and some water element as well. And this mind body principle is responsible for all of our hormone regulations, for the actual processing of information, our focus, our communication between the nerve cell and the muscle cell in order to produce a smooth, coordinated, pain-free movement. With our third mind-body principle, Kapha, made out of earth and water, Kapha is responsible for all life giving, for moisture, for nourishment, for all of the bonding properties and the protective qualities that we want to provide our body's tissues. And the Kapha dosha is also anabolic in nature. It's the builder. And our muscles in the body are the workhorses of life. They allow us to navigate life, move through it, perform tasks, and accomplish difficult things in life and change difficult things in life. And without that energy and vitality, you can't do it. And Kapha is the building energy of the three doshas. It's what allows for the protective layers of fluid and mucus and synovial joint fluid and lymphatic fluids to protect our tissues and allow for the nutrients to actually be received, metabolized by pitta, and then moved throughout the body appropriately by vata energy. And as such, we really are tending to kapha dosha when we're talking about muscle building. We're wanting to build onto the body in a very intelligent way. And the body inherently already rebuilds itself routinely on a daily basis. We're always generating new cells and new nerves, and all kinds of regeneration is naturally happening in the body. And so by combining both a Vedic and Ayurvedic approach, we will have health and wellness. Ayurveda really dedicates a lot of its attention to those circadian rhythms and building the strength of our digestion and the ability to move waste out of the body. And that begins with the very first tissue formed in the body, referred to as rasa. It is the plasma and lymph in our bodies that is built upon the basic foundations of what we eat, when we eat, how we move, and when we move. And that very much is the definition of health, according to Ayurveda. It's the body's ability to balance all of the tissues and organs working in concert together. It's a mixture of sensory and motor organs performing in concert to communicate and execute in a really skilled and efficient manner. And this is considered a state of health, a state of balance, that you're only taking in as much as you're able to digest and process, and then you're able to move out the waste product from there. It's the essential definition of health. And not only in Ayurveda, but many holistic systems, and even the World Health Organization has adopted some of this framework in its definition of health. And the importance of longevity and muscle building is reflected in the money that we're seeing in the regenerative medicine market, where in just a year and a half from when I'm recording this now in 2024, it's expected that the US average dollars spent in regenerative medicine will be close to $1.5 million. And we've come a long way from the basic diagnostic tools of imaging, getting an X-ray or a CAT scan or an MRI. Now technology has evolved so much further into gene editing, hormetic therapies, rapamycin use, AI and digital twinning, and mitochondrial restoration, and many, many more. And so there's big money, big interest in regenerative medicine. And there's a reason for that, because the role that our muscles play in longevity and vitality is a big one. And that's what we're going to be introducing you to today. With the anatomy of skeletal muscle, let's talk about that a little bit. We've got roughly 700 to 800 muscles in the body. It's a bit of an academic debate as to the exact number because more muscles are being identified and codified. I believe it was Dr. Andy Galpin, a professor at California State University and director of the Center for Sports and Human Performances, was saying recently on a podcast that I heard that that there has been some talk about identifying a fifth quadricep muscle. And so while, again, there's some academic debate, you've got hundreds of muscles. And what makes them so unique as compared to different types of muscle in the body? I'm talking about skeletal muscle specifically. We also have cardiac muscle, which is primarily your heart. And we have smooth muscle in the body, which is usually lining our organs and more associated with autonomic functions, things like breathing and blinking and things that the body just does normally as part of your ability to live and thrive without you commanding it to be done. And so what we're talking about here is skeletal muscle. And skeletal muscle has different types. We have fast twitch and slow twitch, and there's even a third type of muscle that's referred to as 2X. But we're not going to talk about that today because that represents a very small population percentage. Those are the high performers, your David Goggins kind of characters. We're primarily going to be talking about the type 1 slow twitch muscles and type 2 fast twitch muscles and how they're different. Now, they're unique in their function, but they're pretty similar in structure, where you're going to have hundreds of thousands of individual fibers or strands that make up a muscle unit or a muscle bundle. much like a ponytail analogy, that you have several thousands, hundreds of thousands of strands of hair that come together in a single bundle, and that's your muscle. And those bundles are paired with a single motor nerve. And that is what we call a motor unit, actually, is the nerve cell that is embedded within the muscle cell talking to it. And as such, we know we can condition muscle tissue, skeletal muscle, to build and um, lose its um, capacity for building based on a change in our activity level. We know this when we take a cast off after surgery for a long period of time, or if you've ever had a broken bone or sprain that required a cast, and when it was removed, there's muscle atrophy, right? It's the one organ system that is so heavily influenced by our lifestyles that that's why there's so much attention being placed to it, that the quality and quantity of our muscle tissue is directly correlated to cardiovascular health, overall morbidity and mortality, hormone health, cognitive health, um, and so many others, bone health, and such. And that's why the National Institute of Health has its own wing dedicated specifically to sarcopenia, muscle loss. It's so important to how we move through life and are able to process everything that we take in. Now, just to give you kind of a sense of how responsive, we know that muscle tissue is very responsive to our lifestyles and changes. And we see this mostly with um, phytochemicals in high concentration, like your liquid chlorophyll. We see a strong response in muscle building to these highly concentrated phytochemicals, your green juices, right? Your green soups, where all of this energy is captured by the sun and can be metabolized by the body. We also have minerals and various hormetic therapies like hyperbaric oxygen tanks and cold plunges and intermittent fasting and all these other kinds of techniques that I talk about, teach, and we practice in Alchemy Club to build healthy muscle tissue and your vitality in turn. And when we talk about how to build healthy muscle, we're talking about these microscopic tears in the tissue that are produced by biomechanical strain or force. And this can be through exercise, it can be through self myofascial release with foam rollers and ball rollers and massage guns. It can be, those are really the two main forms that these microscopic tears occur in a therapeutic way to then cue to the body to regenerate. And when those tears happen, that whole process of rebuilding muscle starts with lactic acid. And this increases and causes a production of human growth hormone and the release of testosterone. And these are two hormones specifically that correlate to muscle building. Testosterone helps us burn fat as a fuel, and human growth hormone is responsible for the actual literal building of the tissues. And muscle tissue will overall regulate blood glucose levels, our metabolism, and our lifespan. And so there's really not a way that illness just appears out of nowhere. That this is an accumulation of choices around how we nourish our bodies and how we eliminate wastes and the things that we don't need, and how we're able to really move forward in an intelligent way. And so I wanted you to have the basics on how muscle is built, how muscle breaks down, and what to do about it. So watch the next video where I talk about injuries and how to best recover from them.